Thank you so much for coming to be with us this morning for a short time to start your day, some of you. And some of you have been supporting us for the whole full 35 years that we have been an organization in existence. And all of you have contributed in some way. Just your interest is a contribution, and we're very glad to have you with us. We wouldn't be able to deliver anything like this report today without your caring and all the support that we've received. And we have really kind of a big community that stretches around the world at this point. And you are our village. You are our cherished village that is nurturing very good practices among people who care about children and families around the world. So thank you for being here. I'm here to introduce you to Maya Coleman. She has a PhD. She's been using hand-in-hand parenting as a mother and as a clinician for over 15 years now. She founded our research team. She masterminded a robust research project that spanned 5 time zones in 21 states of the US and led to significant streamlining of our curriculum for early childhood educators. It's really an excellent curriculum at this point, thanks to all the information we got from that research project. And Maya is also an inaugural fellow at the Georgetown University's Thrive Center, an incubator for new and cutting-edge international initiatives to improve early childhood education and special education for people with physical and developmental differences. And she is Hand in Hand Parenting's executive director. This is the beginning of her 3rd year. We are so fortunate to have her as our leader and our pathfinder at Hand in Hand during these challenging times. And these times are offering unique opportunities for systemic change, hidden around in the middle of the chaos that we see around us. There are many opportunities to make things a whole lot better for human beings in the US and around the world. And these kinds of changes, this kind of historic period only comes around once in a while. And we happen to be privileged to be alive and kicking and doing good things while things are in flux. And Maya's helping us and helping other people as well to build new systems that serve human beings better. So we're really fortunate to have her as our AD. So welcome, Maya. It's all yours.
Thanks so much, Patty. And thank you all so much for being here with us today from all your different time zones. I see we have some new friends and supporters, so I wanted to just say a few things about Hand in Hand. So we're an international nonprofit with over 250 certified instructors working in 38 different countries, and we have at least some materials in 14 different languages. And our core focus, the core focus of Hand in Hand, is relational health, which, if you haven't heard this sort of newish term before, it's based on the fact that human development and well-being occur within relationships, and that strong relationships are built through repeated, positive, trusting, responsive interactions. So at Hand in Hand, we offer a set of 5 concrete listening focus tools that help really all of the adults in a child's life build just those kinds of relationships with children and with each other. And Hand in Hand, so we work at the parent to child level, we work at the family level, we work at the community level with teachers in schools, medical and mental health professionals. As Patty was talking about, we work in all of these systems of care. And so what what we are working to do is to help build a culture of connection in all of the places that children grow. And to address this larger context, you may have been hearing about and experiencing what the former U.S. Surgeon General has so eloquently highlighted, which is an epidemic of loneliness and isolation in the US in particular, and the crises in both child and parent mental health. But what we know is that the kinds of relationships we help build are actually the super protective factor for children in the context of all of these challenges. So even when children face multiple adverse experiences, it's the presence of a trusted adult relationship that buffers them from a huge range of difficulties. And this protective effect extends into adulthood, influencing kind of everything from concrete health conditions to educational achievement, employment stability. So, hand in hand's big goal is for there to be at least one hand in hand supported adult in every place that children grow. To illustrate what this looks like, here in reality now, I wanted to share the story of a 4-year-old I worked with a number of years ago in private practice. I'm trained as a clinical psychologist. Almost my entire practice was with 4 and 5-year-old children who had been suspended or expelled from preschool. And one of the children I worked with was a 4-year-old named James. He had a history of medical trauma and later a diagnosis of autism. And he was put on a behavior plan in his private preschool program. And that's when the family brought me in. And when I did my first school observation, he stood alone on the playground, sobbing, with no adult support throughout my entire visit. And before I even had a chance to work with him and his teaching team there, the family was out counseled, which is the private school term for an expulsion. Luckily, in his next preschool, I was able to collaborate with his teaching team, and I used the hand-in-hand tools to help one of his classroom assistants really become his person at school. And at the same time, I worked with James and his father weekly in their home, bringing hand-in-hand tools on board in their family. So I supported his father to offer James one-on-one time when James was in charge of what they did together. I helped him learn or really refine, because he was already pretty good at it, kind of taking the less powerful role during physical play and following James's laughter. And I supported him in anchoring James during very high emotions and helped him set limits in ways that actually increased their sense of connection. And my entire theoretical orientation was the hand in hand approach. And I worked with them for about 2 years. And just a month ago, I actually got a call from James's father who wanted to share that James is now on the honor roll, just earned his black belt, and was actually asked to work at his karate program for pay, teaching the younger children. And this was just amazing to hear. And it's it's just actually a very, very different trajectory than many children who are expelled from preschool experience, and particularly in the context of neurodiversity. So James is just one, but one real person who is part of really a hidden epidemic of exclusionary practices in preschool. You may or may not know that preschoolers are expelled at a rate 3.5 times higher than K through 12 students. It's actually the period when children are the most likely to be excluded from their school community. And this is the start of what you might have heard of referred to as the school to prison pipeline, but it's actually the preschool to prison pipeline. It's these early expulsions that have devastating long-term impacts. Children who experience early expulsion like this are up to 10 times more likely to experience academic failure, to drop out of high school, and to face incarceration. But luckily, we actually know the answer to shutting down this pipeline, which is through resourcing the adults in children's lives. And this is what Hand in Hand does. It's through our peer support networks. We create communities of learning and practice and support where parents and teachers can receive the kind of listening and understanding that they're working so hard to provide to children. So as Patty mentioned, we've been doing this work for over 35 years. And I'm really excited you'll get to hear from two of our amazing instructors, Shelley Macy and Pam Oatis, who have been doing this work since the beginning. They're going to talk a little bit about their work with tribal early care and education communities. And we hope to partner with a group of programs they're connected with to offer support through our wraparound model, which is when we support all members of a community, parents, educators, the allied health and mental health providers at the same time, so that the whole community is getting aligned training and support. So I'm going to pass things over to Patty, who will introduce Shelley and Pam a little more fully. Thank you.
Thanks, Maya. Oh, I'm so happy to know that you'll be soon hearing from Pamela Oatis and Shelley Macy. I'm going to introduce them one by one and just tell you a little bit about a few of the things that they've done in their busy, long lives. So Pam Oatis is a pediatrician, a researcher, and a hand-in-hand trainer. She raised two grown sons and a foster son, and she has done outpatient pediatric care and hospital leadership in Toledo, Ohio for 30 years. She was named the Ohio Pediatrician of the Year in the year 2011 and the March of Dimes Pediatrician of the Year in the whole United States for 2013. She obtained local and federal funding for a 3-year statewide research project, one of the research projects that she's done, with the professionals who were building medical homes for children with complex illnesses, children who were spending their lives in the hospital so that everybody around them could be trained to care for them in their homes. She taught over 700 public health nurses, early intervention specialists, and Head Start teachers how to use Hand in Hand's connection-based listening tools. These tools were shown to ease stress for children, their families, and their allies. And those children and their families had been through, as you can imagine, years of medical and caregiving anxiety. So Pam has been a main contributor to the work of Hand in Hand's research team. She works with Shelley Macy doing outreach at tribal early childhood education conferences now, building the relationships upon which we hope to do our excellent work. And you can learn more about her at pamotis.com. She's writing a new book. And one more detail, Pam that doesn't just happen to be, Pam is a world-ranked senior athlete, triathlete. So Pam, thank you for all of this good work. And we'll hear from you in a moment, but I want to introduce Shelley too. Shelley has raised two grown children, and she taught early childhood education at Northwest Indian College, which is in Washington State, for over 26 years, working with educators in early learning programs in 14 tribal nations in Washington State and Idaho. She's also a researcher. She conducted a research project bringing hand-in-hand listening tools to the College Early Learning Center, staff and children there. Her research was funded by the American Indian College Fund and published by Mellon Tribal College Research Journal. You can find a link to her research paper on our website, and the results of her research were highly encouraging. So her paper is a lovely read. It's a lovely read. It's not all dry and technical. It's about human change that she was able to bring about during this research program. So thanks to Shelley's work and to generous donors that we treasure, Hand in Hand is now working with the Lummi Nation Early Learning Program and several other tribal programs to expand the beneficial hand-in-hand work that Shelley has introduced and planted. Shelley and Pam are now building key relationships with tribal early learning leaders around the US at tribal early childhood education conferences. And when they go to conferences, they bring collaboration, listening, and enjoyment to the connections they make, and a down-to-earth honesty as well. Their special sauce is humility mixed with enjoyment and confidence in the goodness of other people. It's infectious, and it is moving our work forward beautifully every time they go. So Shelley, welcome.
Good morning, everyone. As I was preparing for this talk, I started out thinking, well, I need to tell you about all the work I've done and continue to do in tribal communities with Hand in Hand. But I think I may need to tell you first about how I have benefited so much from this work. Perhaps I can share a bit of what it's meant to me to work within so many tribal spaces, to make countless Native friends and acquaintances, to contribute to the communities I've been in, and to feel loved and respected and contributed to myself by so many good people. That being a professional has meant being myself, being personal and building trusting relationships and working together for the common good, all of which are strong tribal values, hand-in-hand values, and my own, that have suited me and taught me well. I learned to go where I was invited and to be with people, not just at work, at times of great joy and times of deep sorrow, to be present. Hand in Hand and I have been a good fit within these many Indigenous communities, and I have benefited beyond measure for over 3 decades now. So teaching early childhood education and parenting with Hand in Hand was the foundation for the work I did at Northwest Indian College from 1989 on. I love Hand in Hand. And you might note that 1989 was also the year that Patty started Parents Leadership Institute that we now know as Hand in Hand. So we've been hand in glove this whole time. Hand in Hand backed what I believe to be true about children, parents, and early childhood workers. And that was great. So the curriculum available to me with its scope and sequence and activities helped me to share the information more confidently. Well, Hand in Hand always gave me the confidence to love people openly, to connect with them, to accept their teasing and their loving, and to know that we were connected to one another as we navigated the ups and downs of our lives and the college experience. So almost all of my early childhood education students were already working in their tribe's early learning programs when they were required to get their CDA credential, a Child Development Associate, and then their 2-year degree, and then their 4-year degree. And at first, almost all of my students were also first-generation college students, the first in their family to go to school. And there was nobody who knew what college was, what credits were, and all that kind of lingo that goes with college. So I was their recruiter, their admissions officer, their chief assessment counselor, their academic advisor, and their course instructor, and the interpreter of all things college to make sense of it all. And tribal colleges really are a tremendous phenomenon of doing what needs to be done with a tremendous amount of commitment to all students and potential students' success. So my students, their early learning programs and their supervisors, and the grantors who funded us and I all worked very hard together to help them get to their goals, sometimes taking several years with many detours. And not everyone got that CDA or degree, but we all got to learn and grow, to build relationships, and to try things that were new and challenging, heartworking and caring. Heartwarming and caring. Hardworking, heartwarming, and caring. So I faithfully kept up with my own listening partnerships outside of work to keep up with my discouragements, people's real lives with their work in early childhood, parenting at home, and the effects of generational trauma pulling at them in countless ways. And my own self-doubts could lead to some very big feelings that I needed to release on a regular basis. And of course, I taught them to do listening partnerships with me and each other. And the wonderful ideas that their children were good and that the tears and tantrums were healing. And they came back with wonderful stories, like the child who quit biting in the toddler center after humongous stay listened and listening to a child really being present while they cried. And then there was a child who finally was able to use the toilet after a big stay listening time over cleaning up after lunch. Or the laughter that permeated one small center once the whole staff took the hand-in-hand course. And then there was the pregnant teen mom in my Even Start parenting group, where I also shared hand-in-hand parenting information about listening to children with tears and tantrums, special time, and so on. And we did a support group every week, of course. It was 1994, and Hand in Hand was only 5 years old at the time, and these ideas had not permeated much of anywhere yet, certainly not the tribal nation where I was working. So no one near me was teaching parenting this way. But to Olivia, this was exactly what a parenting class was and should be, and so she thrived in it and it all made sense. So she didn't question it. So her baby was born, and she had such confident, matter-of-fact stories telling us about when Taylor cried. And after checking for hunger, thirst, a wet diaper, she knew to listen. And how he would just cry so hard and then be so peaceful and open to her and his daddy. She was a wonderful mom, and she's gone on to have a couple more children and to hold a leadership position within the tribe, working with families who have been in traumatic situations. And then there was another mom, Vicky, in one of the parenting groups I held in the 90s, later on in the 90s, a couple years later, and she became a native plants specialist for the Tribal Extension Service program within the college. And several years after Even Start Group, in around 2013, when we had the grant from the American Indian College Fund, she came to a community meeting we held, which we always did, to consult with the community about what they wanted. So we wanted input about a new family engagement chunk of money that the college fund was going to give us. And they were wonderful ideas, like family evenings where children and parents could play and work together doing cultural activities like beading and weaving and drumming and eating, of course. And Vanessa said, but for sure, you have to include listening partnerships. She and Melody had been doing at least a weekly listening partnership with each other for the past 18 years, and I had no idea. So we did listening partnerships for sure in the new project. And of course, I was planning to, but I wasn't sure how it was I was going to work in what they advised me to do with what I thought needed to happen. However, it was not hard. I always knew I wanted to teach in early childhood, but oh my, the leadership of my students in helping me to revise coursework and use approaches that worked for them in their settings, cultures, and communities was tremendous. We have so much to gain by supporting the development of Native leadership in all spheres of life and society, and certainly in early childhood education and at Hand in Hand. I had a small Hand in Hand certification group in my last 2 years at the college with the American Indian College Fund funding. And 3 of the women in that group came with me to the Hand in Hand summer retreat down in California in 2014. And what a wonderful adventure we had. But our grant ended in 2015, and it was really time for me to retire, to step down from full-time work. So we did not get to complete their training and certification process, and they went on to other jobs. However, it has continued to be a goal of mine to ignite the spark in tribal parents and teachers to join us as certified hand-in-hand instructors and build our capacity within tribal early learning programs, families, and tribes as steadily as we can. Building on the past successes and relationships, I'm really enjoying my role now as a trainer of Hand in Hand for 3 tribal early learning programs in these past couple of years. And now, 10 years post-retirement, those relationships still matter. They still exist. And the strength of Hand in Hand's listening tools I remembered fondly with hopes that we can bring them to more places more fully. And oh, the places we've been. Okay, Pam, that's your cue.
Macy, oh my goodness. Uh, you are magnificent. Thank you so much. Well, I want to start by saying that Shelley and I met at our certification course. We'd had brief encounters, but our certification course with Patty about 20 years ago. And I want to say thank you, Patty. You get full credit for whatever good trouble Shelley and I are able to get into, what we've gotten into and what we will get into. Our shared passion and commitment bridge the miles between Bellingham, Washington, and Dundee, Michigan. Shelley knew real mountains. I knew lumps in the land that I referred to mountains, and she always teases me about that. And our relationship really deepened with our listening partnership that began because Shelley, as you've heard her say, but I will say more, reached out to me in the worst part of COVID. She knew I worked in a hospital. And she reached out to me during that time. And I remember her kindness, her listening, her warmth. I sobbed in the car before I went to my front porch, took all of my clothes off, and hung them out before I went in and took a thorough shower. She didn't really understand my world deep under my eyebrows of COVID, but it didn't rattle her. She wasn't worried. She just listened. Well, that generous, heartwarming availability that she has, I can attest to me personally. And that's what she has brought to her community, her Indigenous community throughout the Northwest, but beyond the Northwest of the United States. So you add this incredible attention and her deep experience, her deep, and the administrator, Shelley, knows how to do all of it. And they know that she knows that experience. They can tell. And so we started, and I apologize if my internet's in and out. I live rurally and it's not perfect. But so our very first presentation, and I'll just give you our order of presentations, was at the Lummi Nation School right in Bellingham. She called and said, would you by any chance be willing to come do this? Very last minute, the big national speaker dropped out. And so they came to Shelley and she put it together and we did it together. That was August 25th of 2023. Our next presentation was at the National Indian Head Start Directors Association annual conference in Billings, Montana. Thank you, Devin. Here are a sprinkle of images of our experiences. So that was Billings, Billings, Montana, June of 24. Then the National Tribal Child Care Association Conference was in Portland, Oregon in September of 2024. And our most recent was the Native American Child and Family Conference in Albuquerque, New Mexico, just here in March of 2025. So I've witnessed in hotel lobbies, in hallways of conferences, this trusting greeting. Oh, Shelley, it's so great to see you again. And it could have been 20 years ago when this person last saw her. Didn't matter. The relationships were solid and memorable in both of their minds. And then there was this story of a woman who we saw in one of those photos. She was sitting in the front row table, soaking in our talk. I mean, really paying attention. That was in Albuquerque. She saw Shelley there at the conference and said, "Don't I remember you?" And all of us remembered. We met each other on the sidewalk in Portland 6 months before at a street place having lunch. It was, I don't know, maybe a 5-minute interaction. She remembered, she came to our presentation and sat in the front row 6 months later. So Shelley's deep and broad professional background combined with these relational health skills make her an incredibly trustworthy, wanted resource in these communities. So now you can enter me, the white Irish Catholic pediatrician, and that loves Shelley, and we have a ball together. We have fun planning. We have fun presenting. We delight in being in wherever it is that we are, that we find ourselves, to be able to be with people that we respect, want to know more about, want to bring what we have benefited from hand in hand. And I need to insert here that hand in hand, I'm sure has saved my listening partnership skills and perspectives, has saved a marriage that I never intended on having, but am still thrilled to be in nearly 50 years later. It was actually my husband who knew Patty before I did. Oh, the whole approach of hand in hand is all that I ever used as a mother of 2 adopted sons and a foster son who are now actually contributing members of society, which I sometimes doubted, I must confess. It was a big lift. It was all I ever used from my emotional behavioral health in my pediatric practice that was effective. It was effective. So yes, our talks are titled Building Peer Support for Staff and Parents while Nurturing Children's Social Emotional Well-Being. Now, isn't that irresistible? I mean, who wouldn't want that in their Head Start, their center or their home-based program? And in usually our presentation, every now and then we get an hour and a half, which we just love. We get in 3 listening exchanges, and Shelley and I are usually out there with a participant, learning, loving, and sharing, sharing our own vulnerabilities. So we easily enjoy them. We are unpretentious. What you see is what you see is what you get. And we respect them. We enjoy sharing our struggles and successes, and hearing about theirs. Personally, professionally, we are committed to this work together. We have learned, both of us, eventually, that doing things together is way more effective, not to mention more fun. And we are fully committed to bringing exactly what Maya described in the way of wraparound services to our tribal communities in the United States. And what the heck, Shelley, why not beyond? We're not shy. Big dreams mean big goals, and those who have goals meet them. So thank you all so much for being here. It's really an honor to serve with Shelley and Maya and Patty and the whole team doing this work.
Thank you both so much. This was just amazing, amazing. And I imagine there are questions, but also just appreciations and reflections and thoughts. So I'd love to just open this up to everybody who's here. If you'd like to share, if you'd like to ask questions, we're open for all of it.
I'll give it a whirl, Maya. I'm never the quiet one on the call. Um, this is so worth getting up early in California for. Your updates, periodic updates, get better and better and better and better. And this morning's was like mind blowing. I use as a gauge. You know, I listen with a pen is what I tell people. When I take 2 pages of notes of, I don't know, half an hour, 40 minutes of thoughts and sharing, I know I came to the right meeting. And Pam and Shelley, your heartfelt. You gave me a new word this morning. I wrote it here somewhere. It was a slip on your part, but I wrote it down. I'll find it. Oh, heartworking versus heartwarming. I'm going to use that one. That's good.
Jane, thanks for being here. Other thoughts, other questions?
I have just I don't know if it's a thought or a question. I was just wondering if you can talk a little bit about what you think some of the opportunities are going forward and working with the, I assume we're just talking about like the tribal communities are working in this area with the wraparound model, and maybe what some of the challenges might be.
So when we do these talks, we ask people if they're interested in learning more. Well, this one we did in Albuquerque in March, we put little post-it notes on the table saying, if you are interested in learning more, Maya had authorized us to say, we will offer the new Early Childhood Foundations course to any of your Head Start, tribal Head Start programs who have a group of folks who'd like to take the course together, and a group being, 5 or 6. So of the 75 or 80 people who were in the group, we got 8 post-it notes back, which actually represented a lot more people, because one post-it note meant that 6 people from their program were at that talk saying, let's do this together. So tomorrow, Friday, we are meeting on Zoom with as many of those 8 or 9 folks who can come. And what we hope to do is, they already know a little about hand in hand. So what we hope to do is to see if we can put together some classes that draw, say, 2 people from each of 3 programs for our online course. And then as we do with our professionals intensives or any of the online courses, then we'd have a weekly mentoring call where we invite them to share their experiences, and we do listening time. And so the hope is that we'll have a directors or managers group from these programs, which would be so good. And then 1 or 2 or maybe 3 staff groups. And then what it will mean in terms of wraparound for parents, we're not sure yet, but we know that we have a lot of flexibility and a lot of desire. We'd like to be able to distance programs at a distance, to be able to fly down to a program in Colorado or New Mexico for a weekend or a couple or a day-long workshop with them as well. So there's lots of possibilities, but that's our immediate one. This meeting tomorrow, which I'm making phone calls about today to make sure people know we want them.
Well, it's a perfect segue to actually being able to thank you for your support, because it is actually your support that meant that I could just authorize Shelley and Pam to offer our support to programs who are in really tricky situations. I'm sure you're following, what's happening with the threats to funding for Head Start and early Head Start programs. So all of these incredible partners are in a really challenging place, and I really wanted us to be able to just come in to our partner communities and say, we can just make this happen. We can just bring these resources in and this support in, and you don't have to figure out how to tap into professional development funding that may go away, or there's threats to the actual existence of these programs. So now is really the time for us to just be able to come in and support all members of these just incredibly precious communities that we are connected with. And it's really because you all have provided support for that in particular. And I'll share that I don't know that I have said this before, but when I came on as executive director, I thought, if I'm only able to do one thing as executive director, I want to make Shelley Macy's work possible. Like I have not told Shelley this before because I think it would feel totally overwhelming, but I just think that the work that Shelley has done over decades and decades has been so unbelievably inspiring to me. And so I'm getting emotional about it, but you can see why. Just hearing from Shelley what has been happening over 40 years. And I think we're finally being able to do that as an organization, to just really center this work that is happening, that is so grounded and long-standing in just relationships that have been built over decades. And this is now when our partners and our precious people are going through a hard and challenging time. And I would love for us to, as an organization and as a group of people, to come in and just be able to support and to bring in the listening support and the training and the community building pieces in a way that these programs don't have to figure out how to access resources to bring in, that we are working to access the resources to make this possible. So, I mean, you can probably imagine there are a million ways to support this work, from supporting Pam and Shelley's travel to conferences and participation in conferences. That's where so many of these connections are being made, and connections between programs. This is what's really exciting is, not only are we looking at a wraparound model for a program where parents and educators and everyone is receiving aligned support. That looks so different in a community than just just working with parents or just working with educators. When everybody is getting this kind of support, what happens in those communities is it's just qualitatively completely different. And so we're working to do that, but in addition to that, building connections between the leadership in those communities, so that there is this connections between different tribal communities. And just to watch Shelley and Pam kind of bring people together and build those relationships on all of these levels is just really amazing. So we'll be reaching out and chatting with people about ways that you can support this work, all the way from getting Pam and Shelley to conferences, to actually supporting our instructors to teach those introductory classes. I think many more are going to need to happen in person, actually. We've been doing a lot of our work virtually since the pandemic, and it's really clear that we want to and need to be bringing this work back on an in-person level. So that requires some different kind of support to be having introductory workshops and final celebrations for classes on site. And there'll be ways to support the research around this, because what we want to do as we're doing this is to really make sure that we are documenting and learning from and evaluating and improving all of our programs based on this work. And that takes some good program evaluation and research support to do that. And that's where I've been putting a lot of my attention, is how we can do this work in a research community and in connection with other people as we kind of establish our evidence base alongside of providing all of these really amazing supports and programs. So I will actually make an announcement that is hot off the presses as of this morning, which is we just found out that our manuscript, which came out of the pilot study we just completed. We wrote a manuscript for this pilot study, and it was just accepted for publication. And it's called Building a Culture of Connection in Early Childhood Education, the Hand in Hand Foundations course. And it was accepted for publication in the Infant Mental Health Journal, which is the journal of the International Infant Mental Health Association, which is amazing. It's amazing. This is a journal that has incredible reach. And so this is a little bit of a chance to celebrate that incredible news. And it really marks this amazing phase of research where all of these elements have come together. So there will be opportunities to support our next phase of research, which we are already planning for and cooking up. So we'll have lots of conversations with everybody individually. I hope people will reach out and we can chat about how you might like to, continue supporting this work. But this would not have been possible without the support of the people here. And I hope that you are just get to celebrate with us what has come from your support. I just want to thank you all so much for being here. I hope this is the rekindling of more conversations and more collaboration and working together. And just want to pass over to Patty for a final wrap up.
Okay, well, we have the privilege, the opportunity, and the challenge of living in an unprecedented time in US history. And it makes sense for those of us who have a bit of energy and resource and know something about listening to one another to help each other shake off feelings of discouragement at this time. It's easy to kind of, slump. But there is opportunity in this kind of a historical moment. Lots of opportunity to work each in our own way to build a more collaborative culture, to build a culture that is much more about the common good than it is about any one person's personal gain. And we're I think a culture that supports the common good and makes plenty of room for each person to heal from hurt, both their own personal hurt and generational hurt and mistreatment, is what we at Hand in Hand are going for. And each of us can do things in our own lives to make this culture bloom in this time of great change and great opportunity. Each person on our earth deserves to have the safety to love and to be loved, to use their full intelligence, and to pursue their purpose in life. And we, starting with parents and young people, is our purpose, bringing the opportunities to live a good life and a connected life. But everyone deserves their place under the sun, whether they're a parent or a child or just everyone on earth. It's a big job that we're trying to be part of. And we at Hand in Hand bring really good tools and practices to move human culture towards this goal of everyone having a safe place and everyone using their intelligence for the good of all. So we hope that you'll stay in touch with us and continue to be our allies in the work that we're doing with parents and children and allied professionals. We are listening, we are learning. Sometimes we're making mistakes and then reconsidering and reassessing and moving forward differently and loving through it all. And we thank you. We wouldn't be here without you. I founded Hand in Hand having great big goals, but no idea how to do anything. Luckily, there have been friends and allies, some of whom have been at this meeting today, who have contributed to what you've just heard. We wouldn't be here without you. We wouldn't be here without your caring. We wouldn't be here without your help and your guidance. So we plan to bring you another update in the fall, and we'll see you then. And in the meantime, it's a privilege to be in this kind of a time, and the opportunities are every day with the people that you know. So we'll just join us with listening and loving and learning, and we'll see what we can do together. Thank you.